Are you impressed that, hey, despite Giannis' struggles, the Bucks are still able to knock down some shots, still able to persevere and get the win? Or are you in the camp that, hey, Giannis struggled again in the postseason. They can't win if he's not going to be their best player on a nightly basis. Are you more concerned or impressed with the Bucks after their overtime victory over the Heat on Saturday?
I think you have to be impressed. See, Giannis was 10 of 24 on twos, 6 of 13 at the foul line. He and Drew Holiday combined for more turnovers than assists. The Bucks themselves shot under 17% as a team from three-point range, and yet you were still able to beat the Heat. I know they got subpar games from Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, but you just look at how Milwaukee was able to defend overall, and then just also what they were able to do on offense, even though Giannis was struggling. Drew Holiday wasn't even that great, but they were able to post up and really open the floor up for everybody else when he was backing down some of the Heat's other guards. Chris Middleton was absolutely huge. I think it proved the variance in how they can play. And that's what everyone's been asking for the past two postseasons, specifically when they've flamed out earlier than expected. They want to see the Bucks be able to play these different styles. And we saw some Giannis as the screener being used as a decoy a little bit, having him off the ball in general, so he's not trying to force the action in the half court. Drew Holiday saw a lot of touches down the stretch, and again, even though it wasn't his most efficient night, he puts pressure on defenses in ways that neither Eric Bledsoe or even Giannis does. So he's that monster upgrade over Bledsoe, and then to have another shot maker like Chris Middleton, even Bryn Forbes helped a little bit for them. They are uniquely built, I think, to navigate bad games from Giannis more so than they've ever been.
I'm with you being impressed with the Bucks, still being able to get that win, persevere through. And even though Giannis gets blown by there by Jimmy Butler to tie the game, still were able to make some shots in overtime to pull it out. So with that said, Bucks being different this year than in previous years, where would you rank them in terms of the East contenders with the Sixers and the Nets? Are they the team in your mind that could get through, or are they second or third in your mind out of those big three teams in the East?
So right now I have the Sixers coming out of the East. I think they're just the most dominant team at both ends of the floor when Joel Embiid is healthy. And I would have Milwaukee number two because I think they have the length and bodies to disrupt what Brooklyn is doing in the second round, which is going to be their probable opponent. I don't think that's easy necessarily, but between Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton, you do at least have three guys that can match up with the big three. And then what they're able to do on offense now, even when Giannis is struggling, I think that gives them even more so a leg up. I would be more worried about them in a potential matchup with Brooklyn than Philly at this point. I think Philly has just more defenders to throw at Brooklyn, and it also helps Philly's case that they get to avoid Brooklyn until the Eastern Conference Finals, if that's the route that they go. Still, I do have the Bucks just as number two because I think they do a lot more things defensively, and that's just something the Nets are eventually going to struggle with. They ended up being okay in game one against the Celtics, but their defense is going to be a sore spot at some point in the postseason.
It's funny, Dan, because I'm 100% with you. The order you have of Sixers, Bucks, Nets is exactly the order I have as well. And I feel like both of us are on an island. Every time you hear anyone talking about who's going to come out of the East, it's always the Nets one, Nets one, Nets one. Forget Nets number two, both having them at number three. For me, it's the leadership, really lack thereof. Obviously, we know they have scoring and plenty, and we just saw in the second half, they could turn it on in the blink of an eye against the Celtics, and they did that, just completely erasing a poor shooting first half. But for me, I'm concerned about the lack of leadership, and when adversity faces in the playoffs like it always does, I don't think they have the makeup to kind of push through and pull through the other side. For you, what is it with the Nets that you have them ranked third out of the big three teams of the East in terms of getting to the finals?
I think the lack of familiarity between James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving on the court, having only played in 9 games total so far this season, we did see it a little bit in game one versus Boston. It's more them taking turns rather than playing off one another or with each other. And so there could be matchups where that gets them into issues. And then it's the defense. How are they going to run front court rotations? It looks like they're going to lean on Jeff Green and Kevin Durant to close games, but there might be matchups where Nicholas Claxton makes more sense, but he got in foul trouble early in game one, and it didn't seem like they trusted to really bring him back after that. If they're going to try and steal minutes with Blake Griffin at the 5, that's something that could potentially burn them as well. And so between those questions about their defense overall, how they're going to run their front court rotation, and then just still that lack of on-court familiarity between their big three, I do think they're more vulnerable than people are really expecting them to be right now.
Do you predict them going down to the Bucks in round two, or you think that they could push through and Philly would get them more in round three? That's a worse matchup for them.
I think I'd have Bucks in 7 in that matchup, and that's probably one where the perception could change if the Nets start playing a little bit more cohesive on offense. It sounds like a terrible word just because they're so good in isolation, but if it looks like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden are sort of more in tune with one another, and the Nets improve defensively as the series with the Celtics goes on, they're absolutely capable of beating the Bucks. They can beat anybody, but I would still roll with Milwaukee at the moment.